and we'll kick off, I think. So I say welcome to the social care webinar. As mentioned, I'm Simon Jones, Director of Communications for Westco, and I'm joined by colleagues from across Westco, and also with our good friends at the Council Advertising Network. Today, we're going to talk about a big challenge facing most councils, which is the pressing need to recruit more people in adult social care. In doing so, we're going to talk through the support that's available to you when it comes to implementing your own campaign on the ground, and the type of resources that's there to equip you and to help you. And just for information, Westco, which is part of Westminster City Council and their Council Advertising Network, launched a public sector campaign hub almost a year ago now. And the aim of the hub is to help you bring down the cost of delivering campaigns and increase effectiveness through the ability to simply share strategy, research, content, and evaluation in a way that will benefit everyone. So around 70 councils have so far tapped into free resources from the campaign hub to help things like reduce vaccine hesitancy. And we've got nearly 100 councils now sharing resources and learning on foster care recruitment. And by working this way, we can significantly reduce the resources needed to deliver campaigns, as well as sharing things like performance, benchmarking performance, and using all that data and insight to optimize campaign delivery and get better outcomes. For example, when where it's been delivered, collectively our foster care recruitment campaign is currently getting an interaction rate 6 times higher than the industry average. And the same is true of the COVID work. And why? Simply because we're using and sharing data across council networks to very quickly work out what is and isn't working, turning off what isn't working and turning up what is working. And that's the approach we're going to take now to the next campaign in front of us, which is social care recruitment. Now, we've been doing engagement with councils for some months now to look at kind of what are your campaign priorities, how as a hub can we work together on campaigns of common interest. And this particular problem was identified as one of those major priorities, really, given the kind of urgent need to fill social care roles, frontline roles, as well as management roles as well. So our goal in this campaign is to increase the number of people interested in a career in social care, to improve the quality of applications and reduce the turnover rate by focusing on opportunities that exist for people to progress in their career. And just before we start, we're going to talk you through the campaign approach, how we've gone about it, what the research has said, how we've used the research to identify key audiences, our target audiences, as well as objectives, and then how that's all been fed into the strategy. But I was going to mention, as we go through that, please do feel free to post your comments and questions as we go along, and we'll try and pick up as many of them as we can at the end, or if we can't, we'll certainly address those after the meeting itself. So let's get started, and I'm going to start now and hand over the baton to Westco's research primo, Rishi Moulton, who's going to talk you through the research and insight into the campaign.
Thanks, Simon. So to start with, we always start our campaigns with research. It's an approach that has always worked really well for us, including previous campaigns like foster care recruitment, which is very similar. And so we first look at the context surrounding the sector. So in adult social care, one of the big things is that the UK has an aging population, and so demand for adult social care services will increase as time progresses. Skills for Care estimates that there needs to be created 490,000 jobs by 2035, and that would be a ratio of 1 job for every 6 people over the age of 65 to meet that demand. And the other research we found was that we obviously know that the social care sector is made up of a range of public, private, and third sector organizations. So we need to create an umbrella campaign to address the needs of all of those kinds of organizations working in an area. But they all face the similar challenges. So one of those is that there are a limited number of people with appropriate qualifications for specific roles, thinking of roles like nursing. And so you're competing with other sectors for people who could take on those jobs. Mandatory vaccination requirements have impacted the ability of the sector to recruit people as well. And we also know that high turnover rates for newly recruited and younger members of staff have cost implications as well. And also there are some perception barriers that a campaign would need to overcome in order to address the need for jobs to fill jobs in social care. So if we go on to the next slide. Cheers. So we found a really useful survey by Total Jobs. So that's a jobs website that explored the drivers and barriers. They surveyed people who'd either applied for social care jobs or chose not to apply for social care jobs. And in terms of the drivers for people who did, they were mainly pro-social reasons, doing it for being a good person, essentially. So knowing that the job makes a difference, satisfaction from caring for others, and being proud to work in the sector were all reasons why people applied for jobs in social care. On the flip side, people who chose not to apply for jobs, the biggest reason was they didn't think they had the qualifications for those roles, followed by perceptions that they wouldn't enjoy the roles, that the pay is too low, or that the working hours are unpredictable. So those are the kind of drivers and barriers we've addressed in our strategy and our creative approach. And finally, one of the things Simon's already touched upon is research from Skills for Care shows that values-based recruitment can ensure lower turnover rate. And when I say values-based recruitment, what I mean is recruiting people with similar values to that of your organization. And by reducing turnover rates, you create long-term savings because you're not frequently recruiting for the same roles. And so that's something we've also factored into our campaigns. If we go on to the next slide. So we take all that research, and what we do for all of our campaigns, like the foster care one, was we create a series of audience segmentations. We created 5 for this campaign. The first 3 address roles for which there aren't any qualification requirements. So we're looking at young job seekers, stay-at-home parents who are thinking of returning to work, and people looking for a career change. And then segment 4 and 5 are specifically targeting those regulated professions where you have specific qualification requirements. So recent graduates who've just gained those qualifications, and people established in their professions in different sectors, for instance. And what we do is we take those audience segments and we create personas. And these personas are really helpful for testing out our strategy and our creatives. And it's about putting a name and a face and a personality to that audience segment. So you can see here, we have Charlie, there's a picture of a face, there's some information about her demographics, some more information about her as a person, what she likes, what she dislikes, what she does, her purchase stage, so where is she on that journey to potentially applying to become a foster carer, and some channel usage as information as well. And so we use that to test our approach. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can review them when you get sent the slide deck later. And finally, we have created a series of objectives that we want to test our campaigns to ensure that they are effective. So we have some broad business imperative objectives. So that's about increasing the social care workforce to address that need, increasing the proportion of people who would consider working in social care from about 31% to 41%, improving the quality of people applying through a values-based recruitment approach to lead to long-term savings. And then in specific areas, we can set specific targets in terms of turnover rate and filling vacancies in managerial positions, regulated positions, and direct care roles. And we can optimize those objectives to your area and your needs. So we've given an example for London, which is obviously an urban environment, but we've also given for the region of the South East, which is more rural. And so that's where our research has led us.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Rishi. So let's get on and start to look at the strategy then that we've pulled together. And when we look at strategy, particularly the creative execution behind the strategy, we use a behavior change model, which takes our target audience on a bit of a journey, by first raising awareness of the issue, and then aiming to convert that awareness into active consideration, and then potentially the actions that we're seeking. And as we go through that customer's journey, we want people to feel equipped, if you like, in terms of having all the information that they need in order to make a decision, and therefore to make it as easy as possible for them to identify opportunities in adult social care and then go on to apply for a job. And the way that our model works is, once we've hopefully got the type of actions that we're seeking, in this case, interest in social care, looking for jobs and opportunities, and then applying for a job, we want people to become ambassadors or advocates and to share their success with others in a way that will encourage others to follow the same path. So that's how the customer journey works. If we move on to the next slide, what you'll see there is kind of what we're going to be doing to support that customer journey. And you'll see there that in the first two stages of the campaign, if you like, the awareness raising stage and the active consideration or contemplation stage, getting people to consider a career in social care, we're going to be developing lots of emotional content that taps into their values in a way that will tweak their interest around what the opportunities are in social care and why people should consider a career in social care, given all of the benefits that exist, benefits when it comes to making a difference to people's lives. So lots of emotional content in the first two stages. As we move people to the preparation stage to help them make a decision, a key part of our campaign will be to develop a microsite that pulls together all of the information about careers in social care. What type of roles exist, for example? What is it like to work in one of those roles? A day in the life of people. What's the pay like? What's the conditions like? What are the career progression opportunities like as well? So we want to kind of create a microsite that contains all that information, that can be local, that can have your own identity into it as well, that then is linked through, this is where we get into the action and maintenance stage, that then links through to local job search tools that will exist on the ground, where people can find, wherever they live, what those job opportunities are, and then go on to apply for roles. That's generally how the campaign structure will work, and we'll talk you through what that looks like in a bit more detail in a second. Moving on to the next stage, next slide. What we have here is some of the underlining marketing tactics that will support that customer journey. I won't go through this in too much detail, but what you'll see there in the early stages is that in the contemplation, the awareness raising stage, is that we'll be doing lots of things such as search engine optimization, lots of specific targeted advertising for our specific audiences, our target audiences on recruitment websites, including LinkedIn. We're looking at generating some user-generated content from real people in roles to play out on TikTok to kind of engage younger audiences as well. So a lot of thought going into the marketing strategy to support the customer journey. And what I'm going to do now is hand you over to our creative team, John Lilly and Hannah Redmond, who will talk you through all the assets that are available and the creative approach to support that customer journey.
Thank you, Simon. So with the creative approach, we went and looked at the data as we always do, and there's a lot of different people in these audience groups who've got different ages, different education levels, different experience levels, and indeed a different amount of knowledge of what the sector is. And we're asking these people to apply for a lot of different roles, everything from registered professionals and management people who are asking to switch lanes to entry-level roles for people with no experience of the sector whatsoever. So we decided that producing one generic creative campaign probably wouldn't be the most effective route. trying to shoehorn all those different people in and to different destinations. So what we've done is we've created a couple of themes and then specific campaigns targeting particular audience groups. And the approach we've taken within that is to look at the drivers and the barriers. And this is a brief that's been around for a very long time, and it's often the messaging is the same. How can we say things that haven't been said before? How can we give the audience a new lens with which to view work in the social care profession? And how can we shift more to that values-based recruitment that Rishi spoke about earlier? And we took all of that and we created some ideas. And what we've done then is we've cross-referenced that with the trans-theoretical model you can see there in front of you, with the more awareness-based creatives there on the left-hand side, moving people through the funnel through retargeting into contemplation preparation, and then getting onto that microsite that Simon talked about, and then funneling them through to the maintenance section at the end once we've got them involved. So the ads on here aren't going to mean anything to you at the moment because they haven't been explained. So Hannah and myself are going to talk you through a few of them. So I'm just going to hand you over to Hannah to talk about the first two ideas.
Great, thank you, John. So this is our first concept called I Care. And this highlights the many skills and values that working in social care allows someone to develop and use. It emphasises how the sector embraces qualities like resourcefulness and decision-making, drawing it apart from other entry-level jobs that our audience might be considering, as well as equivalent roles in the NHS or private sector. So here on screen, we're showing one of the out-of-home ads that would be used in that first stage of our customer journey, so that pre-contemplation awareness stage. And as we move on to the next page, you can see a few more examples of this and how photography plays a really key role in this, always featuring an individual care worker. Standing proud, we want to really hero them and show the pride that they feel by being part of the care sector. And the images also demonstrate that there's no such thing as a typical care worker. People come from all different backgrounds and lifestyles, and diversity is very much celebrated. And the language that we use to describe what they do is always empowering and showing how someone can grow and develop in these roles. And as you can see here on screen, for some social media assets, the message would play out across multiple frames. And what this also demonstrates is how this route works equally well for the entry-level roles that don't require specific qualifications, as well as regulated roles like nurses, making this work across all of our different audience segments that Rishi introduced earlier. And this concept also, if we go on to the next page, this just demonstrates how it can be applied across a range of different specs and sizes to run programmatically. So it can be used across all of those different stages of the customer journey. Now, another social media execution that we can use is short video content. Now, we did something very similar to this format for our fostering campaign, and it had really high engagement rates. So the idea here is that these clips flip around the narrative to show the impact on social care receivers. So in this example, we start with that really powerful statement, "I provide dignity," which is followed by a short 5-second clip, which shows the social care receiver being comforted by the social care worker, which is just off screen, ending in their smile there. And then the call to action, find out more about working in social care, which would direct people onto the microsite. And we could also create longer video form content as well. So if we move on to the next slide, this would allow us to give insight into specific roles. So it would work really well for those contemplation and prepare for action stages of the journey. Now, in this example, we've got a montage of moments throughout the day in the life of a social care worker, in this case, a rehabilitation support worker. And it shows the impact of their work and how rewarding it can be across all of those moments. And the idea is that this would be a series which would demonstrate a range of different roles and therefore could be appropriate for all of those different audience segments. And then finally on this route, we also have some Spotify ads and radio scripts, which again is a really effective way of drawing out more of that emotional content, which can be really effective for those later stages of the customer journey where people are in that contemplation and prepare for action stages. Now, moving on to the next slide here, I'm going to talk through the next concept that we have, which is called extraordinary people. Now, this route aims to really cut through and be very different from what we're used to seeing in social care recruitment. And this is specifically aimed at recruiting people to work with the elderly and focuses on those first three audiences, so those looking for entry-level and unqualified roles. Now, if we look at this example in the bus shelter poster here, we introduce the social care receiver, Frank, and he's looking rather hip there in his outfit, and that's because he's a big music lover, and he was actually a DJ in the 70s. Now, we want to introduce these characters to get across how interesting it can be working with older people, and that through working in social care, you can spend time with people like Frank and hear all about their fascinating lives. So the photography is obviously a really important part of the impact here. And the concept is that we're dressing the older people in clothes and styling them to how they would look and what they would wear if they were doing their thing today. So it's all about shooting it in a way that's really unexpected, but also really dignified. We want to treat them like the stars that they are. It's not about their hardships or what they need help with. Instead, we're highlighting their fascinating lives and the stories that they can tell. So we've got another couple of examples of some more print executions here, which introduce another one of our characters there, Sally, with her very colourful and extravagant nails. And then moving on to social media, here you can see how the message plays out across the frames. So always starting with that striking image to get people's attention, and then a couple of statements which introduce the person, start to tell us a little bit about their story and the role that someone can play working in social care and working with people like these. And these would be used across the pre-contemplation and contemplation stages. And it's all about shifting people's mindset about what working in social care is like. Now, if we move on to the next page, we can also approach this with video. So in the idea here, the camera would pan around the elderly person's world, so focusing in on items and memorabilia that hints at their story as a way of bringing out more of that emotive content, which can be really impactful as we move on into the later stages of the behaviour change journey. And then if we move on to the next page, we could also create some longer video content, which would be in the style of a behind the scenes footage at a photo shoot, which would also feature the social care worker with them. So it invites our audience to really start to warm to these characters through their very emotive stories and start to see the part that they could play in it by being in the social care sector. And again, this would work really well at those contemplation and prepare for action stages. So I'm now going to pass over to John to talk through this next concept.
Thank you. So within all that, we were thinking, what's another way of looking at this problem? What's another way of cracking this nut? And so this campaign we came up with, which is a little bit more cerebral. It's a little bit more of a narrative to it. And this is kind of aimed at people perhaps with a bit more life experience who might be going into the sector for the first time, or as I say, people might be switching lanes but aren't registered professionals. And part of the role of these of social care workers is to make assessments of people, to go into their homes, to see how they're managing, to see if they need a care package putting in place, or if they one they have is adequate. But sometimes these people can be very resistant to talk to you. You're a stranger, perhaps, haven't seen you before. They can be quite defensive. So this reading the signs concept, we can just skip to the next slide, please. We've got a range of these things, and they're things that seem irrelevant when you first read them, but the more you understand them, the more that you understand what a key part they are of the job. So the importance of a mug of tea. If you're in somebody's house and you're in their front room, it can be quite a formal conversation if you're not careful. But if you suggest a cup of tea, go into the kitchen, the whole thing becomes far more open, and it's putting people at their ease And so the importance of a mug of tea is actually to relax people in their own homes and to allow them to talk more freely. And the other executions there talk about how observing things around the house can help you understand, are they eating properly? Are they able to take care of themselves or their pets, who are often their lifeline and their best friend? And if they're saying they can manage, but their pet's looking a bit the worse for wear, there might be some conversation around there that can help you, to come to a better conclusion. So we just thought this was something interesting and different, and we've shown this to a few people within the sector, and they seem to like it. It seems to push the right buttons. So that's something a little bit different. Looking at how we might do sort of job advertising, again, we've taken a slightly different route on this. We've taken some sort of conventional-ish sort of care images, but rather than saying, we want somebody to work in a care home, or we want somebody to be an outreach worker, we've given them different job titles, which kind of focus on the real delivery that the jobs bring. So a social expert is somebody who is really good with people, and a delivery manager is somebody who actually delivers quality of life to people, not just some parcels. And we think this makes it more memorable. It still fits within the kind of job advert trope, but it's more memorable. It's showing the more human side of it as well, and the real value you can bring to people. And on the next slide, we've done something which is really similar, but again, focused around social media. So we talk about, again, this would be aimed, again, at the younger end of the audience, obviously, probably some of the people coming into the role for the first time, who might be on social media, sharing their stuff and trying to get likes. And here what you're saying is actually the real likes, those in-person likes, those in-person moments. The sharing of content is actually being there, listening to some guy's record collection and sharing those fantastic moments together. So it's really taking things which are usually just sort of KPIs for social media, but turning into them far more human, emotional meanings. Hannah.
Cool. So I'm now going to move on to talk about some different approaches that we have for case study content, which will form a really key part of the campaign in those later stages of the journey, and can also be used really flexibly across different social media channels, including TikTok, as Simon mentioned earlier. So this example here on screen is a series of vox pops where we have care workers telling us about the things that they like best about their jobs. However, rather than focusing on the tasks, what we would do is pick up on a trait that they're able to express through their work, therefore highlighting the range of skills that social care allows someone to use. And the idea there being that viewers will be able to see these traits in themselves and start to reconsider that social care may be a career for them. So as an example, one might be perhaps, growing up, I used to love telling jokes, but now in my job, I love that I can make people laugh and smile. Or perhaps I've always loved being in the kitchen, and now I can see people enjoying my cooking. So if we move on to the next page, there are also some other approaches that we have for creating impactful case study content, which includes potentially two professionals giving us their experiences in parallel. So one might be an entry-level care worker who is telling us about their aspiration to be a care home manager. And then the other is a care home manager who is recalling their journey and what they have learned since entering the care sector to move into their position now. So it's all about highlighting the opportunities for progression, and again, really helping shift that view that care work is a stopgap job. Another way is to have two care workers interviewing each other. And by choosing staff in different roles, the conversation can then become much more informative, as the two care workers could discuss the similarities as well as the differences in their roles. And then finally, an idea is to have retired social care workers talking about their careers, and again, as a way of kind of really shifting the perception and framing social care as a long-term career. Now, on this page, we now move into the final stage of the customer journey. And what we want to do here is make it really easy for staff who are already in the sector to show their pride in what they do through social media assets. So similar to those that we've seen people using to show their support for the NHS over the last couple of years. So the idea is that these are badges that people could apply to their social media profiles to either show their pride for working in the sector, or just general public to demonstrate their support for the sector and what it does for our society. So I'm now going to pass back over to John to talk a bit more about the microsite.
Thank you. Just before I do, just to sort of recap what we've done here, it's the same process we used for fostering and for our COVID vaccination work. Coming up with these ideas, putting them back, tying them back to the chance theoretical model, looking at how they're performing. JP will talk about that shortly, how we're able to sort of fine tune as we go, making sure that all the information is given at the right point. The campaign is still reasonably agile. We can move things about. We can incorporate different messaging, testing as we go. But making sure we're getting from that soup to nuts, from that first, I don't know what care working is, guiding them through the process, giving the information as they need it to a point where they go, okay, this is something I'm really seriously interested in. And what we want to do then is to go and apply for a job. So we've created this microsite platform. Now, we know that you guys have council websites, you have pages on council websites, you have IT teams, but there's an opportunity here to drive people towards a dedicated destination. Like Simon referred to it earlier, it's a sort of a microsite. It's a sort of one-stop destination for people to learn about what the types of roles there are in social care, what qualifications they might need for different roles, the benefits of working in those roles. You can put on here sort of local events which are happening near you, face-to-face or online events. We can give people information on how to apply, myth-busting content, and then, of course, links to jobs or job boards. And we can track all of this data so we can see who's coming in, we can see where they're coming from, we can see their user journey on the page, and then we can say, okay, we know that person then left to go and apply for a job over there. So it's a really agile, it is quite a small site, but it's really agile. And it's a key jigsaw piece in getting people from all those communications over the line to apply for a job. So that's under development at the moment. It'll be branded the same as the ads you've seen in terms of its look and feel, its colours. So when people land on the page, they know they're in the right place. We know that when people kind of see an ad that looks one way and they go to a website that looks completely different, they're a little bit like, am I in the right place? This is from somebody different. I'm not sure what's going on here. So we've kept all this as linear as possible, but it can be branded for the individual council. So you have your council logo in the top corner. You have links out to your other council pages, so people are aware they're in the same ecosystem they joined in. It makes it a nice seamless journey. So moving on. So something else we can do for you as well, which is creating an asset register. So it's kind of like a content calendar, but it makes it really, really simple for you to visualize in the activity and helps you get ahead in the game. So we upload the creative. We label it with the part of the journey. You can see there which part of the user journey is, which channel it's on, and then there's a text that goes with it. And this isn't a copy and paste thing. The text is sort of tailored to your council, because obviously if it's just copy and pasted, it's the same as other people's, and also it kind of gets downgraded by the algorithms and the status. And alongside this, we can then kind of track those performances. So this is something that that you or we can tailor basically for your campaign goals. JP.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you so much, Hannah, as well. Thanks for all your work on creating such a rich variety of creatives that councils can pick and select from to run their own campaigns. At CAN, I've worked on a lot of social recruitment campaigns, and we know that really strong creative works really, really hard, and it increases the applications basically you get for your budget, so that your return on investment is stronger and you're able to fill more of those roles. We're running 5 social care recruitment campaigns at the moment, and last week one of them, Proud to Care North London, agreed to trial these new creatives. So looking at them, we know they're strong, but how do they actually perform, and how do they perform versus creative that other places might be correct? So Mathalie, could you share that little report? I apologise for the production values on this. This is something that I made myself, not something that Westco made, which is why it'll probably make you shudder when you see it. But the basic points are Proud to Care North London running a campaign. It's working well. They're getting lots of applications. But just to zoom in on the creative, on average, creative was getting about a 1.14% interaction rate, which is good. It's above industry average. It's clearly intrigue. But what we wanted to see is what was the difference when we put this Westco creative deck into here. So we took 3 of the applications, the care, the extraordinary, and the sort of jobs contextual ad, and we ran it over the weekend in place of the above creatives. And Machtali, if you pop it onto the next slide, this is the data that we've just got back and hurriedly put together. So now, little caveat, when you put something new live, you obviously get really strong interaction rates. So this is, in a way, a slightly unfair test because the old creative has been running for a few months. But we were seeing something quite extraordinary, which is, on average, a 10 times increase in interaction rate. Now, that is definitely a rationale for putting new creative and using an array of different creative. But I think it also shows you that this creative suite is resonating with that job audience, and it is generating interaction. And that thing that when you're running a campaign, there are lots of things that you need to consider. But when you've got really strong creative, the return on the paid media investment that you do is much larger. So thank you so much for sharing that, Machtali. If you go back to the old the standard presentation, so we have creative that we're fairly confident when we put it out there is going to perform well. You have people out there who are maybe considering a range of different roles, and you have roles to fill. So how do we connect them most effectively so that you get a gentle stream of really high quality applications and inquiries? And that bit is the paid media strategy, the implementation. Now, when running recruitment campaigns, more than so many other sorts of campaigns, there is massive risk of wastage in terms of not being able to target to locations that are near to where the roles are. There are trade press, there are a whole range of things that are very, very high cost, potentially very low yield in terms of response. So what we've done is we've looked at the 100+ recruitment campaigns that we've run at CAN, but specifically the 14 social care recruitment campaigns. And we've looked at what didn't work that well, and critically, what did work that well. What we really saw a return on investment from. And we've basically highlighted the top tactics, and we put those together so that you can weave top performing tactics with really strong creative in a way that suits your specific requirements. We know that every council will have different, or every location will have different objectives, different requirements. And so we can take the best performing creatives, best performing tactics, so that when you deploy the campaign, if you just flick onto the next slide, you can get to a point where you know you're getting the maximum return on investment. Now, we have this template, but we can tailor, if you want to have a conversation with us, we can tailor anything to what you need on a local area over short periods, or as we're recommending, always on strategies. The need for social workers is not going to decrease, and so having a constant stream of people being attracted to the profession and attracted to your authority specifically, it is certainly our recommendation going forward. So please do get in touch if you want to have a conversation about how to use this campaign in your area.
Thanks, JP. Over to you, Rishi, on evaluation.
Brilliant, thanks, Simon. So if we go on to the next slide. So as all good campaigns do, we make sure we do evaluation and monitoring throughout the campaign. On this slide here, you can see our kind of broad evaluation metric plan. So it shows the different channels we're probably going to be using, different stages of the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, and the kind of metrics we will measure. Our model of behavior change actually works very nicely with GCS comms evaluation model, which is the Cabinet Office's communications campaigns model of evaluation for campaigns. And so it works very nicely, and this is what we've done. If we go to the next page. One of the advantages working with CAN is, as JP's already mentioned, they have already run a load of social care campaigns, and we can create some benchmarks about social care campaigns, which we can measure the impact of our campaigns on. And so we've already set out our benchmarks for certain digital metrics, and how we would benchmark other metrics as well based on our earlier model. And then actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if it's possible, Magdalene, could you let me share my screen? Because I'll show you a live dashboard which shows how we monitor these campaigns as well. Brilliant, thanks. Right, sorry about this. So this is an example of a dashboard we've created for one of our foster care campaigns, and it shows the life cycle and journey of a campaign, from the budget you put in to our kind of outputs and outtakes in terms of digital metrics, and then impact on overall applications and approvals. And so it shows the life cycle of like number of people that have seen the campaign in terms of impressions, the click-through rate from our ads, how many people have made contact with the council, and then how many people have gone on to apply with a local authority or other organization, and how many people have been approved. And then we can get some metrics in terms of, you know, how much does it cost per approval, so that we can plan campaigns further based on your needs. Savings per annum if there's a monetary value associated with that role recruited, and return on investment. And this is for one of the social foster care campaigns we've already run, and we can also monitor the performance of the creatives as well, overall and week by week. And so we use that and we review that on a week by week basis to just make sure that the campaign's running as we should, and seeing if we can optimize it in any ways, and which creatives are performing better than others. So that's how we'll do evaluation. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and I think I can hand over.
Thanks, Rishi, and we'll just go back to that presentation. Almost there now, folks, so not much more to go. But I guess the golden question, isn't it? The big question on everyone's mind is how do you make use of this? And don't forget that the key benefit of the Campaign Hub is the ability to reduce the amount of resources and therefore cost needed to deliver campaigns, simply because of our ability to share resources across multiple councils. And as Rishi said, it's not just about sharing resources, it's sharing performance and data in a way that will help optimize your campaign as well. So the Campaign Hub basic approach is that all of the kind of basic assets you've seen now, the creatives, the social media, videos, and everything else is offered free of charge. And that's obviously going to hopefully save a considerable amount of money when it comes to your own design costs. And given the amount of thought and that's gone into the development of the campaign as well, quite hard to replicate that on the ground, given the amount of time that's needed. And we've given us that time. So all the kind of basic assets are there free of charge. All we ask, though, in return, is that you use us, and i.e. Council Advertising Network, for your paid digital spend. Come to us and we'll help you ensure that those assets are targeted very precisely on those audience segments that we've identified, so you get best bang for buck out of your paid media spend. That's kind of all we ask. And when it comes to the bigger ticket items, such as the microsite, we can offer that at a much lower cost, again, simply because of the ability to share resources. So we calculated that if only one single council wanted to go out and build a similar microsite, given the amount of content development that's needed, lots of case studies, given the design costs involved as well, and all the technical build behind it, it's going to cost at least £25,000, probably more, £25,000, but that's the type of upfront investment that we've put into this. So that means that we can offer it to councils who want to be part of this campaign for as little as £5,000. And with that comes the ability to localize the look and feel, so it has your identity on it, as well as being able to localize some of the content as well, potentially building in, for example, local case studies as well. And that microsite will also be able to then to be linked to your local job searches as well. So critically, people in Wakefield, where I'm currently working, will see Wakefield jobs when they go on to the microsite. That's the whole point, really, of the Campaign Hub. That's why we set it up, given the ability to share resources, share learning with councils, all of whom had the same problem, the same challenges. We think that's the key benefit of the hub. So that's basically it. That's kind of where we've got to in terms of the campaign build. Much of the content has already been developed. Some of the content is underway, and we're going to be working with local councils as well to develop some of those case studies. But we'd love to hear from you now. I know there's been some lovely comments posted in the chat facility, and people are very keen to sort of pick up a more detailed conversation with us. So that's what we'll be doing next. Happy to have one-on-one conversations with people who want to be part of this. And then we'll be able to work with you in terms of local implementation. Just checking to see if we've got any key questions coming up in the Q&As. One from Carly: will the slides be available? Absolutely, the slides will be available on our Campaign Hub website, the Westco website, the Campaign Hub section. And what I'll do is send the link round to that, so you can download the slides. You can also access the video from today as well, in case you missed anything, or if you want to share it with colleagues. And what you'll also see on the Campaign Hub pages, as well as that, is lots of other campaigns as well. So you might think, well, actually, I didn't know that's available. I didn't realise there's a campaign for foster care recruitment, and look at all those assets we can use. So we'll send around the link afterwards, so you can get to see that as well. And also, I think we have another couple of questions from people asking for specific conversations with us, so we'll pick that up after the meeting as well. And actually, a good question there from Harriet as well. How does this link through to jobs fairs, I think, and events on the ground that will be happening in your areas? That's the whole beauty, I think, of the microsite, is that ability to add local content to it, so it looks and feels like your local website, but also has all that local information about events, jobs fairs, and other activity as well. And we'll work with you to ensure that you can take advantage of all the centralized content, such as case studies, days in the life, etc., but also tap into your local content when it comes to specific promotion of events and activities, and potentially some local case studies as well. Good question, I think, from Harriet as well. Do campaigns look at targeting workers from abroad or overseas? We know this is actually increasingly become a bigger issue, I think, isn't it, in terms of the government looking at licensing or making roles available to people from overseas. And yes, I guess that could be something JP couldn't consider in terms of the paid advertising strategy. Should we be looking at that? But I think that gives us the flexibility to kind of look at those issues as well. If we want to target specific areas, even or countries overseas as part of the campaign, we can do that.
Yes, definitely, and also targeting specific job functions. And we've had experience of this, targeting chefs, admin people. You use contextual targeting. You can target specific people searching for specific sorts of job roles. So yes, there are lots of things you can do targeting specific skill sets, and targeting people in other countries is also relatively simple to do.
Excellent. Cheers, JP. Just checking to see if there's any other questions or comments posted in the chat facility. But as mentioned, we'll be very happy to pick up the conversation on a one-to-one basis after this. And thanks for that kind comment, Zoe, that you love the creative. And as I say, the approach why we've gone down so many different routes of creative is to let the data decide which route we take ultimately, because we use the data in terms of how the campaigns are performing to then optimize and to then maybe focus on one particular route when it comes to what's working, what isn't working. That's why it's worked so well for foster care recruitment and for COVID vaccination as well. That ability to let the data decide which route we take based on what's performing, what's the best performing route. Brilliant. Okay, that's a lot to go through in 50 minutes, but I hope you found that useful. And obviously, if you are planning your own adult social care campaign, which I'm sure you are, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here today, what you can take comfort by is there's an awful lot of resources and assets free to use that you can take advantage of. And what you can also do, what we'll try and do through this group, is set up regular meetings as well for those that are running adult social care campaigns, so we can continually share the learning about what's working and what isn't working, to tap into that, obviously sharing our resources, but also potentially sharing your own resources if you have some on the ground as well. We have councils as well. That's part of our approach. So we'll continue to hold these meetings fairly regularly. I think in the COVID world, we were meeting weekly. We probably don't need to do that here. In foster care world, we meet every 3 weeks, and it may well be that's what we suggest for this approach as well. If you are about to deliver or planning your own campaign, if we continue to meet, then we can share all the insight and data in terms of what's working for those councils that are running the campaign, and continue to share the content updates as well, because there'll be many content updates that happen as we go through the campaign build. Brilliant. Okay, well, I hope that was a nice lunch bite, and thanks for attending today. We'll pick up the conversations with you. I'll send around an email and links and invite discussion on a one-to-one basis afterwards, and enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks very much.